been with us the last few weeks, we've been walking right through the end of chapter 4 in the book of Matthew. We've been looking really, and that's Matthew's way of describing to us the beginning of Jesus' ministry. It's the introduction, it's the summary of kind of what is to come and what Jesus is all about. And we've now reached Matthew chapter 5, and we're going to read verses 1 through 12. It's the commonly known as the Beatitudes, the Blesseds. And I want you to listen because many of us have heard these many, many times. I want you to listen specifically to this. To remember that up to this point in Matthew's story, the focus has been about this proclamation that Jesus has, which is very simple. The kingdom of heaven is near. And now I want you to think as we reach this Beatitudes, this is what Jesus has been preaching and doing and living out in his life. Now he's going to describe who is it for, who is the kingdom for, and who is it near to. So listen to these words from the book that we love. Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach them. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Rarely, I think, in human history have words been spoken which are so beautiful, so challenging, and so confusing. These words are power, and we are a people empowered. There's a story that an acquaintance of mine has told, and she worked in a neighborhood in a big city, and they were doing a lot of the same work. You might be familiar with the work that Heights of Hope does and the type of work that they do with Christian community development. And they were having a neighborhood gathering where they gathered everybody in the neighborhood together to really do just a time where they could share what gifts that they had to offer to the community, to see what kind of giftings were out there in the people, and to just inspire and encourage people in that way. And so they got together, they had some food, but they also asked the question, I want you to share what you dream for our neighborhood and what you are good at and what you have to offer this community. And of course, that was an uplifting, encouraging time, but she said the thing that stood out to her most was that a man came up to her, a grown man, and he had tears just streaming down his face, and he came up to them and he said, "Nobody's ever asked me what my dreams are. Nobody's ever asked me or cared what I'm good at." And I wonder if Jesus' words maybe didn't have the same effect on the people who were listening. Because suddenly, they're the ones who have been told that the kingdom might be far from them. It might not be as close as they thought. Because the question that Jesus is really begging us to ask are, who really are the blessed ones? Who really are the winners? And so we often look at the Beatitudes as another thing to do. And actually, if there are 3 people, real quick, who want to participate, you just right in the front here, somebody. It's real simple. It's not terribly embarrassing. Come on, yeah, there we go. One more.
Yeah, Barb. Okay. Barb is going to be the kingdom of heaven. As if there were any doubt. So I need you to stand right here. Okay, and then you two guys, you're going to line up right here. Here, I'm going to ruin our set. We need a starting line. Because that's what we're all trying to reach, the kingdom of heaven. So this is your starting line for where you start from. So the way we often read Scripture, and then because of that, the way we look at life, and then we also look at the Beatitudes the same way. And I want to just visually demonstrate how different this is when we look at it, what I think is the right way. So Jeff maybe goes through a hard time. Maybe he's grieving right now. So you can take a couple steps forward. You're getting closer. You are mourning. Yeah. So he's mourning. So and then he starts praying a little bit more, and he's going to go a little closer and a little closer. But Andrew also he's a peacemaker. We know that, right? So he takes a step forward. He's a little closer now too. Yeah, so he's a little closer. But Jeff's he's being persecuted. Somebody just made fun of him, because that's how they're mean. And then Andrew takes a little step forward, and then Jeff takes a little step forward, and then okay, so now we finish our race of life. And who's closer to the kingdom? Yeah. Woo! Okay, now go back to your line. But that's not what Jesus said, right? We know that. But do we know that? What Jesus says in his main message, and he's just carrying out his main message here. The main message is the kingdom of heaven has come near. The kingdom of heaven has come near, period. And so here we are. That's all we needed. Have a seat. So, okay. Does this look, this is right? Yeah? Okay. All right, good. So, I just share that. It's so simple, right? And yet, I think it demonstrates how easily we get this wrong, right? Because we hear the Beatitudes and we want to read the Beatitudes just like we read a lot of other things. It's how you get into the kingdom. It's how you get closer to the kingdom. No, it's about the availability of the kingdom. Right? Jesus is just carrying on that message. The kingdom of heaven has come near. And then people say, well, of course it's come near, because people back in Jesus' time thought the same things we do. Well, of course it's come near. Those people who've got their lives together, oh, that person prays so much. Oh, that Pharisee, he's really got it. He's a great teacher and blah, blah. Yeah, those people, oh, that zealot who's passionate for the Lord. Yes, those people they're close to the kingdom. And Jesus says, no, you didn't hear me. The kingdom of heaven has come near, not the other way around. And so it is available. And so we say, wait, what do you mean by that? Well, what I mean is that blessed are the poor in spirit. Those people who didn't seem to make it, right? They tripped right over the starting line. Their hearts are the ones that are down here most of the time. Blessed are the peacemakers, because they're always frustrated. They never really get to see the fruit of their labor, ultimately. Blessed are those who mourn. If you're crying, the kingdom of heaven isn't near, is it? Yes. He's not telling us what we should do or who we should be. He's telling us the way things are. This is about knowing how God's kingdom works, and it's so hard to grasp it sometimes. But we need to, and it's not just about knowing, something way up here in our minds, how the kingdom works. No, it has application. We have a lot of people mourning in our community this week. Is the kingdom of heaven near to them? Is the kingdom of heaven available in our deepest tears? Is it available to the family and friends of Kevin Whitty, Paige Mata, Christopher Mimis, Vincent Green, and so many others who are hurting in this community? Is God near? Is the kingdom near and available when we're totally burned out? Is the kingdom available and near even when we're persecuted? I think it's very important and intentional on Jesus' part that he ends this passage, that he ends this particular teaching by saying, even if you do everything right and you follow me perfectly, right? We talked last week, what is your purpose in life? To follow your rabbi. And he says, guess what? Even if you follow me perfectly, You may be coming up against trials. You may be persecuted because you're following me. And guess what? Rejoice and be glad. You're still on the right path. He is trying, he has to push this hard, right? And we of all weeks, right, we remember on World Communion Sunday that there are many people in the world who are desperately persecuted simply for following. Have they done something wrong? Of course not. And yet, everything in us fights against that. And that's why that's what we need to grasp today. Because do you see how hard this is to break free from? Everything in our culture tells us who is blessed and who is not. Advertisements tell us, sports culture tells us, movies, grades, awards. We can look around and just by what people wear, how they talk, where they live, what house they have, what they drive, we know who the winners and losers are. And so even though we may give lip service to this, oh yeah, of course, Jesus said, blessed are the poor in spirit, it's a daily fight. Because everything tells us the opposite. And we even do this in church, folks. We do this too. Who are the winners? The spiritual giants, the ones who have really stable lives, the ones whose families look perfect, the ones who have the right answers, whose faith never seems to waver, who always show up to do a good deed with a smile on their face. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are those who are satisfied, who have it all together? No. Blessed are those who still are hungering and thirsting for more righteousness and justice and peace. Those who are thirsting for more comfort, for more peace, for more power. Our world is separated into winners and losers, the blessed and the cursed. And Jesus comes into all of that, and he says, the kingdom of heaven is near to all of you, period. So Jesus is challenging us to go a lot deeper than we normally go. Jesus is just saying that you are blessed, period. The kingdom of heaven has drawn near to you who are broken, to you who seem to have it together, to you who are wealthy, you who are poor. It's the same. The kingdom of heaven has come near. And why? It's because the big question is why? How do we know who is blessed and who is not? Why would God bless me? Why would God bless you? Why? And the reason we struggle to understand the Beatitudes is because we struggle to understand grace itself. The grace that says there is no answer to the why question other than God's good love and pleasure. God wants to love you. God's love is abundant and overflowing. Why is someone blessed? Because of God's grace. We are told so many ways who is blessed and who is not, but guess what? The world does not have the power to tell you that. The world does not have the power to name you or to box you in. Jesus speaks these words to the poor and to the outcast, to the peacemakers, to those who are persecuted, and he speaks with the same authority that he had when he set the universe in motion. He speaks with the same authority that he spoke when he said, Lazarus, come out of your tomb. And he says to you with that same authority, the kingdom of heaven is yours. No matter what anybody else says, no matter what category of loser or cursed or outcast that they've put you into. The kingdom of heaven is near. And that's why this is really about power. The power that is available to us and available to everyone who opens their eyes and welcomes in that power of the kingdom. We, the church, are a people empowered because we are a people who can see and who know and who rejoice that the kingdom has come near. And so Jesus, what he does when he goes up on this mountain to give this amazing sermon, he gathers the lame and the poor in spirit. He's got this unqualified ragtag group of disciples that he's called. He brings the burned out and the poor together, and he says, listen close. You who have been crying because you've probably gone to 3 or 4 different prayer services this week. You, the kingdom of heaven is near. You, community leader, you who are working in one of those jobs who you are constantly trying to do good and working with those who need the love of Christ so desperately, and you're burned out of that. Just be honest. You're done. Those peacemakers, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, the kingdom is near to you. You, senior citizen, you're feeling weak and forgotten right now. God knows it. Maybe no one else does. The kingdom of heaven is near to you. This is what Jesus is saying. He gathers that group of folks together and he says, look, I know that every one of you at some point in your lives has felt like it is far away and impossible that God could care, that God is going to give you the power or the hunger or the righteousness and the peace and the whatever it is. And he says to you, God is with you. And that is power. You are heirs to a kingdom, so get out there. Get out there, embrace the power that comes from seeing the kingdom is right next to you, that Jesus is walking right alongside you. Receive that power. You have got to understand this grace today, folks. You've got to try to understand it at least. Understand how radical these words of Jesus are. Because the craziest thing hasn't even come yet. The craziest thing is going to come next week. Jesus is not even done yet. He's not only saying you are called, as he calls these disciples to himself who are totally unqualified. Then he says you are loved by God beyond what you could ever imagine. And you are called by God. You are given a kingdom is near. You messed up bunch of people, you misfits that I've called together, you unqualified and lovely and beautiful and broken people, you are the salt of the earth. You, of all people, are the light of the world. You see where he's going? He's just hammering us with this grace of God, which is power to us, power to comfort, power to go out and to love the world and embrace a world that so often is prickly and unembraceable. Go, knowing that the kingdom is near. And folks, the Beatitudes have never made sense. They didn't make sense when Jesus first said them. But at this table, they start to come into focus. How could we possibly believe? Why do Christians believe, right? Actually, many of us, you just nod your heads. You're like, well, of course God is near to those who are mourning. Good. Why do you believe that? Why have you grown up? If you've grown up in the church and you just know that, why would you think that? Here it is. Because as Jesus goes and lives his life, you start to realize that, wait a minute, Jesus himself was poor in spirit as he cried out on a cross, Father, why have you forsaken me? Jesus himself became meek as he subjected himself to death. Jesus himself is our peace. Jesus is all of these things. And he is the one who brings the kingdom. So when he says the kingdom of heaven is near, he is saying, I am near. I am in your broken body and in your tears. And I want you to do this in remembrance of me. Remember that. And he says, do you remember how I poured out my blood? When you are persecuted, when you are beaten down, when you are burned out, you need to remember this. All of you drink of this. Because this is the cup of hope that will sustain you. And that will actually help you to believe that I am near in your darkest moments. I am near to you. I am as near as bread and as juice in your body, flowing through your veins with my grace and with my power. You are not powerless. You never have been, and you never will be. God is with you.